Hello friends, let us now learn about some important points about the lung volumes and capacities. Okay, let us now learn about some important points about lung volumes and capacities. So lung volumes can be, we have static type of lung volumes and we have dynamic lung volumes. So in the static lung we have lung volumes and lung capacities also. Okay, what are lung volumes? Lung volumes include tidal volume, inspiratory reserve volume, expiratory reserve volume, residual volume, and closing volume includes the lung volumes. Lung capacities include inspiratory capacity, expiratory capacity, vital capacity, functional residual capacity, and total lung capacity are the capacities. Then we have dynamic lung volumes also. In static lung volumes, we take the volumes when the lung is in resting state. Static lung volumes are those volumes which are recorded in resting state of the lung, whereas dynamic lung volumes are those related to the movement of the lung. Okay, so first we have timed vital capacity or forced vital capacity. We have forced expiratory flow during 75 to 25 to 75% of expiratory, forced expiratory flow during 200 to 1200 milliliters of expiration. Then we have minute ventilation, pulmonary ventilation, peak expiratory flow rate. So all these are the dynamic lung volumes. So first we will see the normal lung volumes. So this is inspiration. So in the inspiration we have this intrapleural pressure. Intrapleural pressure during inspiration is less, and that is the less than the atmospheric pressure, and that is the reason why the air enters from the atmosphere inside the lungs, whereas during expiration the pressure, intrapleural pressure of the intrapulmonary pressure is more when compared to atmospheric pressure. So there is expiration of the lungs occurs. If you see intrapleural pressure in the beginning it is less negative, okay, and it becomes more and more negative as the inspiration progresses, and in the expiration it increases and comes back to normal. Okay, so this is with time. And I didn't deal with one type of pressures because the pressures word has come, so I would like to tell you about transpulmonary. There is something called as transpulmonary pressure or transmural pressure across the lungs. This transpulmonary pressure, or you can also call it as transmural pressure. Okay, this transpulmonary pressure is mainly the difference between intraalveolar pressure. It is the difference between intraalveolar pressure and the pleural pressure, intrapleural pressure. If you subtract the alveolar pressure and pleural pressure, then we call it as transpulmonary pressure or transmural pressure. Okay, so this is the transpulmonary pressure. So normally the lungs have a tendency to recoil inwards. The lungs require positive transmural pressure to increase its volume, and the lungs increases with increasing lung volume increases with increasing transpulmonary pressure. That means as transpulmonary pressure increases, the lung volume increases. So what happens at the end of inspiration? What happens at the end of inspiration? At the end of inspiration, if you see, okay, the intra-alveolar pressure is equal to the atmospheric pressure. So pressure of alveoli is equal to 0. Okay, because it is equal to atmospheric pressure, which is arbitrarily taken as 0 centimeters. Then pressure of intrapleural pressure, okay, and intrapleural pressure is taken as minus 8 centimeters. I have dealt this in the last class. So if you see, transpulmonary pressure in this is equal to, as I have said, intra-alveolar pressure minus intrapleural pressure, that is 0 minus of minus 8, that is equal to plus 8 centimeters, is the transpulmonary pressure at the end of inspiration. Then what happens at the end of expiration? At the end of expiration, here even at the end of expiration it is in constant state, that is the alveolar pressure is equal to atmospheric pressure. So pressure in the alveoli is equal to 0. But what is the intrapleural pressure? Intrapleural pressure is equal to -5 centimeters of water. Okay. So what is transpulmonary pressure? In this state the transpulmonary pressure is equal to 0 minus -5, that is equal to +5 centimeters. So this is done at the end of expiration. So these are the values of transpulmonary pressure. Thus during quiet breathing, if you see during quiet breathing, airway is always remains open because transpulmonary pressure is always positive. Because here during, so we can say that if there is quiet breathing, in quiet breathing airway remains always open because the transpulmonary pressure is always positive, so it is always open. Okay. However, if you see during forced expiration, if you do forced expiration, intrapleural pressure becomes strongly positive, which causes transmural pressure to become negative. See, if you see forced expiration, if there is forced expiration, then intrapleural pressure will become more positive, right? It becomes more positive. When this becomes more positive, then obviously transmural pressure will decrease, right? Pressure of transpulmonary pressure will be negative. Okay, so because it will be negative, so this negative pressure will cause dynamic compression of airway. So because the transpulmonary pressure is negative, it causes dynamic compression of airway, and thus causes air will suddenly it expires in a minute. Okay, dynamic compression of airway will cause expiratory flow limitation. So this will cause expiratory flow limitation. That is, beyond a certain limit, increased expiratory force did not produce any increase in flow. Okay, so this is about the transpulmonary pressure. Okay, so this topic I missed in the last class, so I just try to explain it. Okay, now we will come to the present topic, which is about the lung volumes. Okay, so first we will see the normal volumes and then go to capacities. So first we are dealing with static lung volumes and capacities. So first we will see static lung volumes. The first lung volume is tidal volume. Tidal volume is the volume of air that is breathed in and out of the lung during normal respiration. Okay, so this is around 500 milliliters. Among this 500 milliliters, 150 milliliters account for dead space, whereas remaining 300 milliliters is used for the ventilation. So among this 500 ml, 150 ml accounts for dead space, whereas remaining 350 ml accounts for normal ventilation. Then we have inspiratory reserve volume. This inspiratory reserve volume is the maximum amount of air that can be inspired with a maximal inspiratory effort. With maximum inspiratory effort, the maximum amount of air that is inspired is the inspiratory reserve volume. It is around, you can tell this 2000 to 3200, but you can actually tell this to be, you can tell this it is around 3000 ml. Okay, so this is around 3000 ml. Then we have the next reserve volume, which is expiratory reserve volume. This expiratory reserve volume is the maximum volume of air that remains in the lungs after maximal expiration. After maximal expiration, the amount of air that remains in the lungs is expiratory reserve volume. This can also be taken as, instead of this range, we can tell this had to be 1200 ml. This is for entrance purposes, but actually there will be a range of these values, but for entrance you can remember it has 1200 ml. Okay, then we have residual volume. This residual volume is the amount of air that remains in the lungs after maximum expiration. After maximum expiration, the amount of air that remains in the lungs is residual volume, which is 1200 ml is the residual volume. Okay, then we have one more type of volume which is called as closing volume. So what is this closing volume? This closing volume is this is important actually. So this closing volume is the lung volume above residual volume at which airways in lower and dependent parts of the lung begin to close off because of lesser transmural pressure in these areas. See, I'll just explain about this closing volume. See, this closing volume is a point. It is we can also tell that it is a point at which dynamic compression occurs. It is a point at which dynamic compression of airway begins. It is a point at which dynamic compression of airway begins during forced expiration. See, whenever there is this forced expiration, I have just told you in the transmural pressure. It's in the transmural pressure, if you remember. See, I have told you that during forced expiration, what happens is there is increased pleural pressure. Okay, there will be increased pleural pressure. Intrapleural pressure will be more positive. Okay, because we are forcefully expiring it, so it becomes intrapleural pressure will be positive. So transpleural pressure will be negative. So because this is positive, so intrapleural pressure, if this is positive, obviously this transpleural pressure will be negative or decreased. So because transpulmonary pressure is decreased, the airways will be dynamically compressed, and this is called as expiratory flow limitation. This dynamic airflow compression, during this dynamic airflow compression at which it begins, the volume that is remained in the lungs is called as closed volume. Normally what happens is, so if you see, I'll just tell you here. Normally, if lungs are influenced perfectly by gravity, all airways should be dynamically compressed at residual volume. All airways should be dynamically compressed at residual volume. Not in normal cases, but in ideal case. In ideal cases, all the airways should be compressed dynamically at residual volume. But in reality, I have already told you that transpleural pressure depends upon the transpleural pressure depends upon the gravity, and there is less negative transpleural pressure in the apex when compared to the base, right? The transpleural pressure in the apex and base differs. So as a result, even the transpulmonary pressure, which is a difference between intraalveolar pressure minus intrapleural pressure, also has different readings in the apex and the base, right? So as a result, this in reality, the lower parts of the lung, if you see the lower parts of the lung has less transmural pressure. Okay, and because they have less transmural pressure, these will close off early when compared to the upper lung areas. Lower lung areas will close off early. Okay, so this closing volume. So what is closing volume? The closing volume is the lung volume, it is called as lung volume above residual volume. It is the lung volume above residual volume at which lower dependent parts of the lung, at which lower dependent parts of lung begin to close off. The volume at which the lower parts of the lung begin to close off is called as closing volume of the lung. Okay, so this is about closing volume of the lung. Then this is about closing volume. So these are the volumes of the lung. Now we will see the capacities of the lung. So if you see the capacities of the lung, first capacity is we have inspiratory capacity. So what is this inspiratory capacity? So this, what is this inspiratory capacity? Inspiratory capacity is the maximum amount of air that is inspired. The maximum amount of air that is inspired or inhaled after normal tidal expiration is the inspiratory capacity. That is tidal volume plus inspiratory reserve volume is called as inspiratory capacity. Instead of this, value, you can, range, you can tell this inspiratory capacity to be 3000, that is 500 is the tidal volume plus the inspiratory reserve volume, I took it as 3000, so it is obviously 3500. Okay, then we have expiratory capacity. Expiratory capacity is the maximum amount of air that is expired after a normal tidal inspiration. After inspiration, the amount of air that is expired is tidal volume plus is expiratory reserve volume. Okay, so what is the value of this? Let us calculate this also. Tidal volume is 500 plus expiratory reserve volume, I took it as 1200, so it is 1700 ml. Okay, then we have, next we have vital capacity. Vital capacity is the maximum volume of air that is expired at the end of maximum inspiration. Sorry, maximum volume of air that is present in the lung after maximum inspiration. After maximum inspiration, we have the tidal volume, inspiratory reserve volume and expiratory reserve volume also. So in the vital capacity, the value of this vital capacity we will calculate this again. Instead of this one, so tidal volume is 500 plus inspiratory volume is 3000 and inspiratory reserve volume is 3000, expiratory reserve volume is 1200, so it is around 4700 ml. Okay, then the next thing we have is functional residual capacity. This is the amount of air that is present after tidal expiration. That is, after normal tidal expiration, the amount of air that is present is called as normal expiration is functional residual capacity. In the lung, you will have expiratory reserve volume and also you will have residual volume also. So just a minute, yeah, residual volume and expiratory reserve volume. So what is the value here? Residual volume is 500, expiratory reserve volume is 1200, so it is again 17, sorry, this is residual volume, I'm really sorry. Residual volume is 1200 and expiratory reserve volume is also 1200, so it is 2400 is the functional residual capacity. Then we have something called as total lung capacity. What is total lung capacity? It is the total vital capacity plus residual volume. That is the total amount of air that is present in the lung at maximum inspiration. At maximum inspiration, you will have residual volume, inspiratory reserve volume, expiratory reserve volume and also tidal volume. That is the vital capacity. So if you see for vital capacity, sorry, that is total lung capacity. So total lung capacity is the total amount of volume. Okay, so in the total lung capacity we can call this as tidal volume plus inspiratory reserve volume plus expiratory reserve volume plus residual volume. That is the total amount of volumes, all the volumes which are present in the lungs. So if I calculate this comes to be, we have 500 plus inspiratory reserve volume is 3000, expiratory reserve volume is 1200, and residual volume is again 1200. So this accounts for total lung capacity. Okay, this total comes as 5900. Sorry, this total comes as 5900. Then this is total lung capacity, right? So what are the advantages of vital capacity? Advantages of vital capacity, it gives information about the pulmonary function. It will give the information about the aspects of pulmonary function, and it will also tell us about the strength of the respiratory muscles. Okay, it gives us information about the aspect of pulmonary function and strength of respiratory muscles. Okay, that is vital capacity. So first we will see what are the factors which are affecting the vital capacity. The factors which are affecting the vital capacity can be divided into two types. They can be either physiological factors which are affecting the vital capacity, or there can be pathological factors which are affecting the vital capacity. If you see the physiological factors, in the physiological factors, one, physical dimension is important. So if you see the physical dimensions, vital capacity is more in males. Okay, in physiological capacity, physiological methods, first it depends upon the, first we have physical dimensions. So in the physical dimensions, because of the higher volume in the males, vital capacity is more in males, and in the age, if you see, vital capacity decreases in old age, and vital capacity has the strength of the respiratory muscles increases, so vital capacity is increases. So vital capacity is increased in swimmers and divers. So vital capacity is more in swimmers and divers because they have more strength of respiratory muscle. Then if you see posture, vital capacity is more in standing when compared to sitting posture. Okay, and in pregnancy, vital capacity decreases. So physiological factors, if you see physical dimensions, vital capacity is more in males, it decreases with old age. Strength of the respiratory muscle, vital capacity increases in swimmers and divers. Vital capacity is more in standing when compared to sitting. In pregnancy, vital capacity decreases. So these are the physiological aspects affecting the vital capacity. Then what are the pathological aspects? Pathological aspects include in ascites. See, in ascites there will be increased fluid accumulation in the abdomen. So as a result, this will push the diaphragm upwards. So as the ascites pushes the diaphragm upwards, so the lungs will get less volume. So that causes decreased vital capacity. Then in respiratory diseases, obviously in respiratory diseases like pneumothorax or pulmonary edema or any type of respiratory diseases, so in them the air which is the lung parenchyma is involved, or there is compression from from the outside onto the lung parenchyma, and as a result that will decrease the vital capacity. Okay, so these are the factors affecting the vital capacity. We have physiological factors and we have pathological factors. Then coming to factors affecting the functional residual capacity. What is functional residual capacity? It is the amount of air that is left in the lungs after normal tidal expiration. So in that we have expiratory reserve volume and residual volume, right? So if you see this normal for functional residual volume, FRC, factors affecting functional residual volume are, in old age the functional residual volume increases because the volume is left in our lung. In emphysema, these emphysema, bronchial asthma, atelectasis, that is in obstructive lung diseases, this forced residual volume will increase, and in atelectasis functional residual volume is increased. So functional residual volume is increased in old age, emphysema, bronchial asthma and atelectasis. Then What about the measurement? See, all the volumes which we have dealt till now, all those can be measured by spirometer except these two. We cannot measure the functional residual volume and residual volume. We cannot measure the functional residual capacity, and residual volume cannot be measured. So we will have to measure this functional residual capacity, and residual volume should be measured indirectly. Okay, because we cannot measure them directly, definitely we will have to measure it indirectly. So for the indirect measurement of functional residual capacity and residual volume, one we have open circuit method. In this open circuit method is called as, we have nitrogen washout method. In this open circuit method we have nitrogen washout method. Second method we have closed circuit method. In closed circuit method we have helium dilution method. In the closed circuit method we have helium dilution method. So functional residual capacity actually acts as a buffer and helps in continuous exchange of gases. It maintains the residual volume to be constant. Okay, that is functional residual capacity importance. So in the in this nitrogen washout method, we generally do not use this nitrogen washout method. Okay, because it is an open circuit. Most commonly we can use this helium helium dilution method. In this helium dilution method, first the test actually begins at tidal volume and it measures the functional residual volume, and it ends at functional residual capacity, and at the forced vital capacity, and it ends at forced vital capacity. The test begins, and at the end of tidal volume we will measure functional residual capacity. Then at the end of forced vital capacity we measure the residual volume. Then at the end, after maximum inspiration, we will measure the total lung capacity. Anyways, this is not necessary. Fine. Next. Yeah, this is the spirometry. With the help of this spirometer, we can measure all the volumes which we have dealt till now except the residual volume. Because residual volume cannot be measured, we cannot measure functional residual capacity also. So let us see. See, this is the tidal volume. Okay, this is the tidal volume, that is at the end of expiration and the end of expiratory position and inspiratory position we have this tidal volume. What is inspiratory reserve volume? The amount of air that the person inhales during forced inspiration. So this is after tidal volume, the extra amount of air which is inspired is inspiratory reserve volume. So this is the inspiratory reserve volume, which is around 3000 ml, right? Then we have expiratory reserve volume. What is expiratory reserve volume? The extra amount of air that is exhaled during forced expiration. It is extra amount of air excluding the tidal volume. This is around 1200 ml. Okay. Then what is vital capacity? It is the total amount of air that the lung contains at the that is exhaled. The total amount of air that is exhaled after forced expiration is the vital capacity. So after forced expiration we will exhale the inspired air, and we will also expire the tidal volume, and we will also expire the expiratory reserve volume. So this is this combined. So this is around 3000 plus tidal volume is 500 plus 1200, which is equal to 4700. Okay. Then we have inspiratory capacity. Inspiratory capacity during maximum, the amount of air that is taken during maximum inspiration from end expiratory pressure. Taking end expiratory position has the baseline. After end expiratory position, the amount of air that is inhaled is in inspiratory capacity, which includes tidal volume plus inspiratory reserve volume. Okay. Then in expiratory reserve volume, if you see, expiratory reserve volume is taking this is the expiratory reserve volume. taking the end inspiratory position has the base position, the amount of air that is exhaled is expiratory reserve volume, expiratory capacity, taking the end inspiratory position has the baseline, the amount of air that is exhaled is expiratory capacity, which includes both tidal volume and expiratory reserve volume. Then we have functional residual capacity. It is the amount of air that is left in the lung after the normal expiratory position. That is, in the lung we have expiratory reserve volume and we also have residual volume, that is functional residual capacity, okay. So this is the spirometer and important things. So in this spirometer we cannot measure residual volume, because this we cannot measure residual volume and functional residual capacity. So we have indirect methods for measurement of the same. So once we have learnt about the normal static lung volumes, we also have something called as dynamic lung volumes. So the dynamic lung volumes include in the static lung volumes, I forgot to mention one type of static lung volume, which is forced expiratory volume in 1 second. This is FEV1, which is nothing but forced expiratory volume in 1 second, okay. It is FEV1. So in forced expiratory volume in 1 second, it is nothing but fraction of, this is called as fraction of forced vital capacity in first second. I'm really sorry, this is a dynamic volume only. I'll just explain you in the under the dynamic volume only, because forced vital capacity is a dynamic volume. I'm really sorry. So yep, first we will see these dynamic lung volumes so that we will have a good idea. See, this is present here, I'm sorry. So if this is the dynamic lung volumes, we'll see about dynamic lung volumes and capacities. So in the dynamic lung volumes and capacities, first we have something called as timed vital capacity, or we can also call it as forced vital capacity. What does this timed vital capacity or forced vital capacity mean? It is the maximum amount of air that is breathed out on forcefully and as rapidly as possible following maximum inspiration. In this, you will have to ask the person to inspire maximum amount of air, and we will have to ask the patient to expire it as fast. Here what is important here is he should expire it with force and with rapidly as possible. That is forced vital capacity. As the name says, he will have to expire with force, with high force and high volume. That is forced vital capacity, which is FVC. We have this forced vital capacity has mainly 3 components, okay. It has FEV1, FEV2, FEV3. FEV1 is the forced vital capacity, forced expiratory volume in 1 second. FEV1 is the forced expiratory volume in 1 second is taken as 1 second of exhalation is taken as FEV1. So this is the most commonly used forced expiratory volume. Among all the 3, this is the most commonly used forced expiratory volume is forced expiratory volume, or timed vital capacity is forced expiratory volume 1, which is equal to 80% of vital capacity, which accounts for 80% of vital capacity. Then we have FEV2, that is forced expiratory volume in 2 seconds of exhalation. that accounts for around 95% of vital capacity. Then we have FEV3, that is forced expiratory volume in 3 seconds, that accounts for 100%. What is FEV? That is forced expiratory volume. If we write 1, that is in 1 second. If it is 2, that is in 2 seconds. Okay, so this forced expiratory volume, and we have forced vital capacity. So these two, there is one ratio which is called as forced expiratory volume 1 by forced vital capacity. It is very important. This ratio is very important. This ratio is normally 83. This is normally 83, or this is more than 70%. This forced expiratory volume by forced vital capacity is normally 83, that is, it is more than 70%. Okay, so this forced expiratory volume 1 by FVC will help us to find out the obstructive lung disorders or restrictive lung disorders. In order to classify them, we require this dynamic lung volume. So if you see, in obstructive lung diseases like asthma, vital capacity is normal, but forced expiratory volume decreases. Inspiration is normal and expiration is obstructed. So here this main difference is forced expiratory volume here will decrease, whereas in restrictive lung diseases, not emphysema, I'm sorry, in restrictive lung diseases like kyphoscoliosis, ankylosing spondylitis, all interstitial lung diseases, all occupational lung diseases except I think berylliosis, I think also, except some interstitial lung diseases, they have restrictive disorder. In restrictive disorder, vital capacity decreases, forced vital capacity is normal, and total lung volume and all the expiratory flows will decrease. Okay, here vital capacity is normal in obstructive lung disease, vital capacity decreases in restrictive lung diseases. So this is one thing which you have to understand. Then we have something called as forced expiratory volume during 25 to 75% of expiration. Then we have something called as forced expiratory flow during 25 to 75% of expiration. In this forced expiratory flow during 25 to 75% of expiration, this mainly includes, we have maximum flow of the lung. This is the maximum flow of the lung during the middle 50% of forced vital capacity. It is the maximum expiratory flow of lung during middle 50% of forced vital capacity is forced expiratory volume forced expiratory flow rate 25 to 75. This can be abbreviated as forced expiratory flow rate 25 to 75. That is the amount of air that is, this will be the amount of air that is expired in the middle 50% of forced vital capacity. Okay, that is 25 to 35. It is also called as maximum mid expiratory flow rate. We also call this forced expiratory flow rate during 25 to 75% of expiration has maximum mid expiratory flow rate. It is also called as maximum mid expiratory flow rate. So what does this give? This is sensitive to, actually it is not sensitive to chronic obstructive. You cannot say that it's actually for chronic obstructive pulmonary disorders. It is actually best measured for small airway resistance now. So I'll just remove this. It is actually a good measure for small airway disease. Actually it is best, not even good. It is best for small airway diseases. this forced expiratory flow during 25 to 75% of expiration, or also called as maximum mid expiratory flow rate, is best for small airway diseases. Then we have something called, then the next one which is important is forced expiratory flow rate between 200 to 1200 ml of respiration. The next thing is forced expiratory flow. This is forced expiratory flow during 200 to 1200 ml of respiration. That is FEF, that is forced expiratory flow 200 to 1200 ml. So what does this mean? This means the mean expiratory flow rate between 200 to 1200 ml. The mean expiratory flow rate between 200 to 1200 ml. So it accounts for 350 liters per minute. There are some disadvantages for this. What are the disadvantages for forced expiratory flow between 200 to 1200? Actually, if the disadvantage is, if you see the initial phase of forced vital capacity fall is so rapid that pressure difference is almost to zero, is not too much. See, the initial phase of forced vital capacity is very fast, initial fall is very fast, so that the pressure difference is too much, that it is that this type of dynamic volume can be mixed in. So it is so the pressure difference is too much that it may miss small obstruction in airway. So as a result, this is not used in our routine practice routinely. Okay, so you'll just remove it because it has a disadvantage that it can be missed due to the rapid fall in forced vital capacity. Okay, then we have the next important thing which is called as minute ventilation. We have something called as minute ventilation, or also called as pulmonary ventilation. So in this this is based on multiple breaths, not one breath. Okay, this is minute ventilation, also called as pulmonary ventilation. It is the amount of air. Minute ventilation is the amount of air that is inspired or expired by the lung in 1 minute. It is the total amount of air that is inspired or expired in 1 minute. So this is obtained by pulmonary ventilation, or minute ventilation is equal to tidal volume into respiratory rate. If you multiply tidal volume to respiratory rate, then we get minute ventilation or pulmonary ventilation. Here if you see, the tidal volume is 500 and taking arbitrarily respiratory rate has 12 breaths per minute. So it is around 6 liters of air has been inspired and expired in 1 minute. That is minute ventilation or pulmonary ventilation. Then after that we have peak expiratory flow rate. This peak expiratory flow rate is the expiratory flow rate which is present during the peak of the vital capacity. At the peak of the vital capacity, that is during the forceful expiration, the maximum flow rate that is obtained is peak expiratory flow rate. This peak expiratory flow rate is actually the simple test of ventilation function and recorded with a flow meter which is called as Wright peak flow meter. It is very simple test and it can be recorded with a flow meter called as Wright peak flow meter. And these volumes are, the peak expiratory flow rate is mainly accounts for 400 to 500 liters per minute. Peak expiratory flow rate accounts for 400 to 500 liters per minute. This is peak expiratory flow rate. Then after this peak expiratory flow rate is, the next we have is maximum breathing capacity, or we can also call it as maximum ventilatory capacity. There is maximum breathing capacity or we have maximum ventilatory capacity. So this means the maximum amount of air, that is largest volume of air that is moved in and out of the lungs in 1 minute by maximum voluntary effort. With your maximum voluntary effort, the amount of air that you can move in and out of the lungs for 1 minute is called as maximum breathing capacity or maximum ventilatory voluntary ventilation. This is actually decreased in emphysema, airway obstruction and poor pulmonary muscle strength. This maximum breathing capacity or maximum voluntary ventilation is decreased in emphysema, airway obstruction and poor pulmonary strength. So this is around not 50, this is 125 to 150, 170 liters. This accounts for 125 to 170 liters per minute. That means you can actually take almost 125 to 170 liters per minute. See, sorry, this peak expiratory flow rate, this is wrong. This is per minute calculation, but this is correct, that value is correct, but the thing is in peak expiratory flow rate we don't take it as per minute volume, we won't take the whole volume as minute, we will just take each expiratory flow is taken, each breath is taken separately. So this is, we don't take that. Okay, this is maximum breathing capacity. There are maximum voluntary ventilation. Then after that we have the next one, which is called as pulmonary reserve, or we also have breathing reserve. We can call it as pulmonary reserve or breathing reserve. So what does this mean? In pulmonary reserve or breathing reserve, it is the amount of air above ventilation which is breathed in and out of lung for 1 minute. Breathing reserve is the, we can also tell this breathing reserve as, there is one more way that breathing reserve can be told as it is mainly the amount of air that is breathed in and out without any effort for 1 minute. So it can be given as maximum voluntary volume ventilation, maximum voluntary ventilation minus pulmonary ventilation or minute ventilation can be given as pulmonary reserve volume. So this can be maximum ventilation volume minus pulmonary ventilation is called as pulmonary reserve. Okay, then there is something called as dyspneic index also. What is this dyspneic index? So this dyspneic index is the difference between maximum ventilatory volume minus pulmonary volume by maximum ventilatory volume. So there is one more formula which you can derive from this. So this maximum ventilatory volume minus pulmonary volume is equal to pulmonary reserve or breathing reserve by maximum voluntary ventilation. So this is pulmonary reserve by maximum voluntary ventilation. So this is dyspneic index. So these are the different indices and the dynamic lung volumes. Then, so this is about the lung volumes and everything. Thank you guys for watching my lecture. In the next class we will learn about the surfactant. Thank you.